You would be absolutely shocked to see what's left behind after a massive herd of wild boars tears through an entire area in just one night. They are no longer appearing only in wide cornfields. Now, residential neighborhoods have become one of their regular targets, bringing endless trouble to families across the United States. According to the USDA, the feral hog population has exploded to around 6.9 million animals and spread across at least 35 states. In Texas alone, they have already invaded nearly 73% of the entire state. Farms are constantly being destroyed, crops are wiped out, and agricultural damage keeps getting worse every year. But the most alarming part is this. The crisis has continued for years with almost no signs of slowing down. It is becoming a problem that people simply can no longer ignore. According to USDA APHIS, agricultural losses and feral hog control costs in the United States have now reached roughly $2.5 billion every year. In the wild, where there are almost no natural predators capable of controlling them, feral hogs reproduce at an alarming rate and have gradually become true survival machines that will eat almost anything, even other hogs when food becomes scarce. They move in massive groups, tear up the ground, destroy crops, and leave entire areas looking like disaster zones overnight. This uncontrolled population boom has created an entire high-tech trapping industry, where many local residents now make a living doing dangerous wildlife control work. While most people are asleep, these trappers quietly check trap lines in the dark, push deep into the woods, and face constant dangers ranging from venomous rattlesnakes to giant feral hogs trapped inside steel cages. For them, this is not just a job. It is a tense battle against one of the most destructive invasive species in America. To fight back against these monsters, the American trapping industry has developed systems capable of capturing entire sounders in a single activation. One of the most advanced technologies is the remotely controlled drop trap system developed by companies like Big Pig Trap. The entire trap is suspended above the ground, leaving the area underneath completely open and free of obstacles. Because of that, the whole herd can naturally walk underneath and feed together without sensing danger. Once every hog is fully inside the trapping zone, the operator simply presses a button on a smartphone, and the massive steel frame instantly crashes down within seconds. However, even these modern systems still have weaknesses. If the bait is not placed perfectly in the center, hogs standing near the edges may escape before the trap fully drops, or worse, become pinned underneath the heavy steel frame. To solve this problem, a local trapper nicknamed Big E, owner of a wildlife control business, designed his own custom drop trap system. His trap looks like a true mobile fortress, strong enough to withstand the violent impacts of full-grown feral hogs. The entire frame is welded from thick steel, surrounded by heavy-duty metal mesh, and reinforced with solid steel bars across the top to prevent the animals from jumping out. The whole system hangs from a four-legged structure built with high-strength steel tubing. Once the trap slams down, there is almost no chance of escape. The feral hog crisis across the southern United States is becoming one of the most expensive lessons in wildlife management history. From just a few domestic pigs released into the wild centuries ago, they have grown into an ecological disaster, causing nearly $2.5 billion in damage every year. Fields ripped apart, gardens destroyed, and wetlands devastated daily are clear reminders of what happens when an invasive species is introduced into a balanced ecosystem. Once the natural order is disrupted, native wildlife across the entire region begins to suffer under enormous pressure. And as the damage continues to grow more severe, one major question still remains. How can humanity create a better balance between development and nature in the future? If you know any effective trapping methods or useful wildlife control tips, feel free to share them in the comments below.
Overnight, dozens of acres of farmland were torn apart into deep, muddy trenches, as if the ground had been ripped open by heavy machinery. Infrared cameras captured packs of wild hogs crashing through fences under the cover of darkness, only to disappear again within minutes. What made it even more alarming was that despite the steel traps set across the property, the hogs kept returning as if they already knew exactly what was waiting ahead. That was when many farmers realized the real problem was not the traps themselves, but how quickly the wild hogs were learning to survive. In the United States, wild hogs have become one of the most destructive invasive species. Their population exploded from around 2 million in 1990 to nearly 9 million in less than 3 decades. And the problem is no longer limited to America. Australia, Germany, and Spain are facing similar outbreaks. Once night falls, groups of 20 to 40 hogs leave the forest and sweep across farmland like massive black waves, destroying crops and causing billions of dollars in damage every year. As the pressure continues to grow, large-scale control programs have been launched across many regions. From From helicopter surveillance to infrared cameras operating all night long, every piece of data is used to track the movement patterns of the herds. Among all the methods available, corral traps remain the most effective when used correctly. Unlike smaller traps that catch only a few animals, these systems are designed to target entire sounders before the hogs have time to react. An effective corral trap is usually about 30 to 40 feet wide and built with heavy steel mesh strong enough to withstand the impact of dozens of full-grown hogs. The fencing typically stands at least 5 feet high to stop them from jumping out in panic. Many modern systems now use remote-controlled drop gates connected to live cameras. Operators monitor the herd from their phones and trigger the gate only when every animal has moved deep inside the enclosure. The moment the steel gate slams shut lasts only seconds, but determines the success of the entire operation.
Antler magnet draw them up.
But even the best designed trap can fail if it is placed in the wrong location. Areas near water sources, soft ground, or established travel routes consistently produce much higher success rates. Trackers search for signs like freshly rooted soil, mud smeared against tree trunks, long body rub marks, and deep hoof prints pressed in the ground. When these signs appear night after night, it usually means the entire herd is using the area as a regular route.
Out. Maybe just to help out, but dude.
The biggest mistake is often impatience. Professional control teams do not simply set a trap and wait. Instead, they spend days allowing the hogs to lower their guard. Fermented corn is scattered around the trap site for 3 to 7 days while the gate remains open so the animals can move in and out freely. Infrared cameras capture the lead hogs venturing deeper inside each night. At first they linger cautiously near the entrance, but eventually the entire herd begins feeding as if the location were completely safe. Bait plays a critical role in the process. Fermented corn creates a powerful scent that spreads far through the night air. During hotter seasons, watermelons, apples, and peaches are also commonly used because wild hogs constantly search for moisture. When everything is done correctly, a single corral trap can capture dozens of hogs in one activation. Some camera footage even shows entire herds packed tightly inside the enclosure without realizing the steel gate is about to crash down behind them. But the deciding factor is not the trap itself. It is the timing of the gate closure. Trigger it too early, and the remaining hogs will escape and remember the location as a dangerous area. After that, the entire herd may abandon the route completely. But when operators patiently wait until nearly every animal is fully inside, the chances of capturing the whole group increase dramatically. The sight of dozens of hogs slamming into steel fencing moments after the gate drops has become one of the most intense images in many control operations.
Get in there.
Everybody, let's go.
That is why the battle against wild hogs has never been just about the strength of the trap. It is a battle of strategy between humans and animals that are adapting faster with every passing night. One small mistake can cause the entire herd to disappear, only to return later even more cautious than before. That is why the most effective control systems are not built on luck, but on patience, constant monitoring, and the ability to accurately read herd behavior. If you find these strategies incredible, leave a comment and make sure to follow the channel for more intense encounters between humans.
More than 150 pounds of solid muscle, razor-sharp tusks, and an out-of-control breeding rate are turning large farming regions into real battlefields. Traditional steel traps are slowly losing their effectiveness against wild boar herds that are becoming smarter and far more cautious. As a wildlife control team in Texas, we understand that this fight cannot be won through brute force alone.
Let me just slim down. On foot.
That's when Pig Brig entered the picture, a soft net trapping system that is flexible yet almost impossible to break. The entire team immediately got to work. Each person took their position, moving together with the precision of a system we had practiced countless times before. Heavy hammers slammed repeatedly into the ground, driving steel posts more than 7 feet deep into the hard soil. The Pig Brig net was carefully suspended into place while fermented corn bait was spread from the outer edge all the way to the center of the trap. Near the edge of the forest, a large herd of wild boars quickly appeared after dark. They eagerly pushed toward the fermented corn scattered deep inside the net without realizing the danger waiting ahead.
Darkness.
Out in the shadows, a few scout hogs remained perfectly still, constantly sniffing the air, listening, and studying every small movement before deciding to move forward.
Mine.
The next morning, we returned to the site to inspect the results. The instant the herd spotted human figures approaching, panic exploded inside the trap. Wild boars of every size charged wildly in every direction, repeatedly slamming into the net walls in desperate attempts to escape. But every effort was useless. The soft net absorbed the full force of each collision and bounced right back without tearing apart. After several days, we noticed the herd beginning to change its travel routes. Because of that, a new trap site was set up in an open area between the forest and the farmland. During the early stage, the bottom edge of the net was rolled upward to create a sense of safety. Bait continued to be spread from outside to inside, allowing the boars to move freely in and out without resistance. This was the most important step, gradually convincing the herd that the trap was simply another harmless part of the environment. When the cameras finally sent an alert, a group of hogs weighing around 80 pounds slowly approached the site. They stood outside for a long time, constantly sniffing along the edge of the net before cautiously lowering their heads to eat small amounts of bait. But eventually, the lure of the food overcame their fear. They pushed their snouts deeper, then slowly stepped completely inside the trap. Everything happened so quietly that the herd barely realized the entrance had closed behind them. The following morning, under the blazing sunlight covering the empty field, we walked toward the trap with that familiar feeling of anticipation. Inside was pure chaos. The entire herd was desperately fighting to escape. Dust exploded into the air as the heavy bodies smashed repeatedly against the steel post system. We stayed patient for several more days, allowing the boars to become completely comfortable with the presence of the net. Once we confirmed they had started willingly entering the trap to feed, I lowered the net further but intentionally left a small opening at the entrance. It was a carefully calculated psychological trap, designed to lure even the most cautious hogs deeper inside. Eventually, the results came. After days of monitoring, we captured a massive 140-pound boar along with its entire herd. They slammed into every corner, spun in circles, and viciously bit at anything in front of them. The entire steel post system shook violently under the raw power of the herd. But the harder they fought, the more exhausted they became. Every possible escape route had already been sealed shut. Controlling wild boars has never been about brute strength alone. It is a game of patience, tracking skills, and understanding the behavior of these animals with absolute precision. When field experience is combined with smart systems like Pig Brig, we are determined to protect the crops, land, and livelihoods of local farmers.
Across the massive fields of Texas, a silent war unfolds every single night. Huge groups of wild hogs storm into farms, tearing up the ground and destroying entire crops within just a few hours. What makes the situation even more alarming is that these animals are not only powerful, but also incredibly intelligent. They quickly learn how to avoid traditional control methods and become harder to stop over time. As the damage continues to grow, many ranchers have started using giant steel trap systems capable of capturing entire sounders at once instead of targeting individual hogs. The problem became far more serious when signs of wild hog activity began appearing across nearly all of Texas. From dry hills and cornfields to forests near rivers, the ground is constantly being ripped apart by large groups searching for food. Cameras placed around farms regularly capture dozens of hogs moving through properties every night. Today, Texas is believed to have the largest wild hog population in the United States, with more than 2.6 million animals. Over the years, these hogs have adapted extremely well to harsh environments and can survive by eating almost anything. That is exactly why massive steel traps started appearing across large ranches in Texas. Unlike traditional small traps, these systems are built in large circular shapes using heavy steel panels, creating what looks like a fortress in the middle of an open field. The circular design makes the inside appear more natural, helping reduce the hog's suspicion as they enter. The heavy steel gate is connected to a remote control system operated through a mobile phone, allowing ranchers to trigger it from a long distance away. Trap locations are carefully chosen, usually near water sources or along routes that hogs frequently use while moving at night. Once the trap is installed, ranchers spread corn around the area for several days, so the hogs become comfortable with the location. In the beginning, the gate remains completely open so the animals see it as a safe feeding area. Infrared cameras monitor how many hogs enter each night. When the entire sounder has moved deep inside the trap, the system is activated remotely. Within seconds, the giant steel gate slams shut and seals off every escape route. In one successful operation, more than 30 wild hogs were captured at the same time. It is considered one of the few methods truly capable of trapping an entire sounder instead of simply making the remaining animals more cautious. Even so, many experts believe traps alone are still not enough to fully control the problem. In areas covering thousands of acres, where the terrain is too large and difficult for off-road vehicles, control teams have started using helicopters to track hogs from the air. Once an operation begins, helicopters fly low over the ground so observers can easily spot torn-up soil or trails frequently used by the hogs. From above, pilots can quickly locate groups moving along forest edges or across wide-open fields. The moment the sound of the engine fills the air, the hogs immediately scatter in different directions, trying to escape. However, the aerial advantage makes it extremely difficult for teams to lose sight of them. The helicopter constantly changes direction to maintain the right distance, while guiding ground crews toward the exact location of the moving sounder. Although highly effective, this method also comes with enormous costs. Hiring a helicopter for wild hog control in Texas can easily exceed $1,000 per hour. Still, many ranchers consider it a worthwhile price if it helps reduce the heavy damage caused each season. From giant steel traps to helicopter pursuit operations, Texas is using nearly every method possible to slow the growing wild hog population. And this battle will likely continue for many years to come. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment sharing which method you think works best. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about agriculture and nature.
When wolves and mountain lions gradually disappeared from the forests of Arizona, another species quietly began taking over the dominant role. It was the wild boar. No longer confined to remote wilderness areas, they were moving closer and closer to residential communities, devastating crops, tearing up the ground, and leaving many farmers living in fear every time nightfall arrived. The emergency call from a soybean farm early that morning was the first sign that a new wave of intrusion had begun. We immediately loaded all the equipment into the pickup truck and rushed straight to the scene. The moment we arrived, chaos unfolded before our eyes. A massive wild boar had gotten its leg trapped in an agricultural mesh fence at the edge of the field. But instead of panicking, it became more aggressive than ever. Every time someone moved closer, the animal instantly charged forward, slamming violently into the barrier as if trying to destroy everything in front of it. It was obvious that ordinary fences could never withstand the strength of a hundreds of kilograms beast driven into a frenzy. By observing the torn-up soil stretching from the field to the nearby forest, we quickly identified the herd's well-worn travel route. This was no longer the problem of a single animal. If nothing was done immediately, the entire area would continue to be destroyed within the next few nights. Specialized steel trap systems were deployed at once along the paths with the freshest tracks and mud. Every position was carefully calculated based on wind direction, feeding habits, and the wild boar's incredibly sensitive sense of smell. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight touched the forest edge, I slowly approached the first trap with an indescribable sense of tension. Inside was a gigantic male nearly 5 feet long and weighing around 150 kilograms. The raised bristles running along its spine made it appear even more terrifying. At the slightest sound, the beast instantly spun around and slammed into the steel frame, producing deafening crashes that echoed throughout the forest. But the operation was far from over. We continued waiting until darkness completely covered the fields. Silence stretched on for hours before the surveillance cameras finally began sending signals. From the dark forest, the entire herd emerged, slowly moving toward the trap along the exact route we had predicted earlier. The scent of the captured boar combined with the bait caused them to lower their guard. One by one, they lowered their heads and crawled through the angled entrance of the steel trap. The moment the last boar stepped inside, the trapdoor mechanism activated instantly. The heavy steel gate slammed hard against the ground. The entire herd erupted into panic at once. Violent impacts repeatedly crashed against the steel frame, making the metal shake violently. But the more they struggled, the deeper the edge of the gate dug into the soil. There was no longer even the slightest gap left for escape. At another location nearby, the vertical gate trap also proved effective. A lone wild boar confidently walked inside to feed, completely unaware of the collapsing mechanism waiting above its head. With just the slightest touch, the steel door dropped with a thunderous crash into the darkness of the night. Startled, the animal slammed itself against the cage walls, spinning wildly inside the cramped space, but the mechanical lock had already sealed shut completely. As dawn approached, the most dangerous part had only just begun. We had to move these animals out of the area under absolute safety conditions. The truck was backed tightly against the trap entrance, and heavy straps were secured to the transport cage. Relocating wild boars demanded calmness and precision down to the very second. One small mistake was all it would take for the animal to turn back and charge directly into the steel barrier with tremendous force. After hours of tension, the entire herd of wild boars was finally removed from the area. The farm became quiet once again, but we understood that the peace would never last forever. As the cold season arrived and food sources in the forest continued to disappear, other herds would inevitably return. And when that happened, these steel traps would once again rise along the forest edge, ready.
Arizona is not the place people usually think of when talking about feral hogs. This is a harsh, dry land where every small water source is precious, and the few surviving fields struggle to endure the relentless heat year-round. Yet even in such unforgiving conditions, feral hogs have begun appearing more and more frequently. They tear up the ground, destroy irrigation systems, and leave the already limited farmland in ruins after only a few nights. What scares people most is that no one truly understands why they are coming here in such large numbers. Are they searching for food, water, or a new place to live? And why do they seem harder to control with every passing day? That is also the reason I am here in Arizona today. If no action is taken soon, the damage will almost certainly continue to spread. My plan is to place 4 traps in 4 completely different areas where signs of feral hog activity are the heaviest. The first trap is a homemade steel cage set beside a small water source where the ground has been torn apart by countless fresh digging marks. After securing the entire steel frame, I begin scattering bait around the area before extending it into a natural trail leading deep inside the trap. In a dry environment like this, the smell of food is almost impossible to ignore. Everything is finished before dark. As night falls, the first dark shapes begin emerging from the distance. They move slowly, constantly sniffing the ground before following the bait trail straight into the trap without realizing what is waiting ahead. By the next morning, when I return to check the trap, the steel door has already slammed shut. Several feral hogs are trapped inside, repeatedly crashing against the iron bars in complete desperation.
Knock down a little bit quick.
The sound of metal impacts echoes through the quiet surroundings, creating an even greater sense of tension than I expected. The second trap is much smaller but reinforced far more heavily, positioned in an open area near the edge of the forest. Because this location offers almost no cover, everything has to be camouflaged as naturally as possible to avoid making the hogs suspicious. After finishing the setup and spreading bait early in the morning, we retreat to a safe distance to observe. What surprises me most is how quickly the trap becomes active. By the afternoon, it is already packed with feral hogs. Not just a few isolated animals, but an entire group crammed into the tight space, constantly releasing loud, chaotic snorts. But the trap I remember most clearly lies deeper within the open land. When I arrive to inspect it, there is only a single feral hog inside, yet it is far larger than all the others. Its massive body circles endlessly around the narrow cage, its eyes filled with caution and aggression. The animal throws its full weight against the steel bars, producing sharp metallic crashes that echo throughout the forest. Even so, the trap holds firm, keeping the beast locked inside without giving it the slightest chance to escape. The final trap is placed deepest within the forest, where tracks and movement paths from the entire herd are concentrated most heavily. This is also the location where I place the greatest hope. After carefully preparing everything, we leave and allow the forest to sink into silence throughout the night. By the next morning, even from a distance, we can already hear violent commotion coming from inside the trap. As we move closer, the entire group of feral hogs begins thrashing wildly within the cramped enclosure. It is clear that the trap has worked perfectly, capturing the entire herd exactly as planned from the beginning. Then comes the hardest part, relocating all the captured feral hogs. The animals constantly resist, forcing every step of the transport process to be carried out with extreme caution. It takes a long time to safely load them onto the truck without any incidents. And when everything is finally over, the area slowly returns to silence as though nothing had ever happened. But as I look across that dry and unforgiving land, I understand very clearly that what we accomplished today is only a small part of a much longer battle still waiting ahead.
Oh, she's out!
After Hurricane Helene, a massive pack of wild hogs suddenly charged through flooded neighborhoods, smashing trash cans and sending residents running in panic. The terrifying part was that they didn't react to car horns or flashing lights at all. With fences around farmland destroyed and food in the forest running scarce, the hogs started pushing deeper into areas where people lived. 4 wildlife control teams across the southern United States. The fight had now reached residential neighborhoods.
Cứu hộ. Vào ngày 30 tháng 11, nước dù đã được cứu chữa.
T first, Many teams relied on advanced traps equipped with infrared cameras and motion sensors that could be triggered remotely. But after the storm, unstable network signals caused the systems to fail at the worst possible moments. That forced crews to return to simpler but more reliable methods: fermented corn, wooden stakes, rope, and steel frames anchored directly to trees. Instead of depending on technology, they began tracking footprints, routing damage, and movement patterns to place traps more accurately. The bait was made from corn fermented for several days, producing a sour smell strong enough to travel long distances through the humid air. But if the bait was placed even slightly wrong, the entire setup became almost useless. Control teams had to monitor the hogs for days to pinpoint their travel routes before setting the traps. After the hurricane, the ground was so muddy that one wrong step could sink a person knee-deep. So every trap frame had to be reinforced with wooden stakes and steel cables tied around large trees. With technology becoming unreliable, everything depended almost entirely on field experience. During one night of heavy rain, the hog showed up earlier than expected. The sounds in the brush quickly turned into a wave of chaos rushing straight toward the trap. A massive sow suddenly slammed into one of the support stakes, knocking the entire frame sideways before tearing through the fence and leading the rest of the pack around the back. Everything spiraled out of control within seconds. Flashlights dropped into the mud, and people shouted through the pouring rain while swinging wooden poles to keep distance from the charging animals. The next morning, the scene revealed damage far worse than anyone expected. Huge tracks were stamped deep into the mud across the entire area. Several tree trunks had been shredded by tusks, and the steel trap had been nearly bent out of shape. After examining the site, the control teams realized the hogs weren't just searching for food. They kept returning to familiar territory, remembering trap locations, and even reacting to human behavior, making old tactics lose effectiveness fast. After the incident, the entire control operation was upgraded. The number of guards was doubled, and shifts rotated constantly throughout the night to prevent it. Drones were brought in to monitor movement from above, while new traps were fitted with GPS trackers in case they were dragged out of position. Around the camps, vibration alarm systems were installed to detect unusual movement the moment the hogs approached. But instead of rushing into direct confrontations with
John, they'll get out of that. They'll get tired of that.
Testing trap designs on smaller packs before expanding to larger operations.
Oh, she's out!
After repeated encounters, the crews realized something important. Wild hogs weren't afraid of traps sitting in an open field. What truly made them cautious was constant human pressure. If the control teams let their guard down for even a few days, the hogs would quickly return along the exact same routes. Because of that, many areas stopped relying on a single fixed trap and instead combined patrols, remote surveillance, and constantly changing bait locations to make their patterns harder for the hogs to predict.
Do that again. Getting them all together is and it's just absolute.
Even with modern technology improving every year, the battle against wild hogs across many farming regions is far from over. Storm-damaged fields in Mississippi have shown just how quickly these animals can move in when protective systems weaken. For wildlife control teams, every night in the field is still a test of experience, patience, and the ability to react under pressure. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment and don't forget to follow the channel for more intense encounters from the wild.
Highly sought after in the specialty market.
Yep.
Collection.
We had been setting traps for 7 straight days, but what finally appeared at the end still left everyone stunned. After the last net trap deployment, I realized the wild boars had changed. The net traps no longer caught them off guard. They no longer moved in large groups like before, and they stopped rushing toward baited areas so easily. Their tracks were still there, but far more scattered and sparse. What stood out the most was that they always stopped right before the locations where traps had previously been set. Everything was becoming much more difficult. I knew I needed a different approach, a trap large enough to control the entire herd quickly and efficiently. The first trap was set in broad daylight inside a clearing deep within the pine forest. Everything was carefully arranged, hidden well enough to avoid raising the boar's suspicion. When night fell, they finally began to appear. One by one, they followed the scent of food into the large enclosure. And once the entire herd had moved far enough inside, the trapdoor suddenly slammed shut. The next morning, the sounds echoing from inside were enough to tell me the trap had worked exactly as planned.
Business. Yep.
2 more traps were placed just outside the farm's open field, a location that seemed far too exposed and lacking any real cover. I honestly didn't expect much from that area. But the results turned out to be the complete opposite of what I imagined. After just one night, the number of wild boars caught inside was far greater than I expected. As I walked closer to inspect the traps, the sight inside genuinely shocked me. Somehow, the herd had let its guard down in a way I never thought possible. Violent crashes echoed non-stop against the metal frames, making the entire atmosphere feel more tense than ever before. The final traps were placed deep inside a dense pine forest where sunlight barely reached the ground and where the boars usually moved with almost no caution at all. We set the traps along an old trail where their tracks were still clearly visible. Every detail was carefully calculated, from the position of the drop gate to the way the bait was spread to make everything appear as natural as possible. Once everything was finished, the team left the area and allowed the forest to fall completely silent again. As darkness settled over the woods, the cameras began capturing the first movements. Out of the shadows, the wild boars slowly emerged. At first, only a few approached cautiously, moving slowly while sniffing the air around them. But little by little, more of the herd gathered around the trap site. And once the entire group had moved deep enough inside, the gate suddenly slammed shut, the sound tearing through the silence of the forest. Instantly, the entire herd erupted into panic. Their screams echoed through the trees alongside the violent impacts against the steel frame and the constant rattling of metal. The entire trap shook violently under the force of the desperate animals trying to escape. After completing the inspections, we began processing the traps one by one. Even as the boars continued reacting violently inside, every step had to be carried out with absolute precision. Guiding them out and loading them onto the trucks was far from simple. Every movement required careful coordination and precise timing to avoid dangerous situations. From the aggressive adults to the piglets crowded behind them, each animal had to be controlled and transported back to the holding site. This was no longer just an ordinary hunt. It had become a large-scale effort to control a wild boar population far bigger than we originally expected. And when everything was finally over, the forest slowly returned to its natural silence, as if nothing had ever happened. But I knew very well this was only part of a much longer battle ahead.